Do I need the mic?
You do.
Generally, I'm such a loud mouth. Okay, and I wanted to thank everyone for coming this evening. I want to thank the unit principals who are here, and most of them are here this evening, so that's wonderful to have them here. We have our city council members and our school board members here with us this evening, so thank you for coming. And Dr. Hutchings would like to have a few opening remarks, and then we're going to get started, so thank you.
So yeah, well, I mean, really, I just wanted to say thank you all for coming out to speak tonight. I know that we just got back.
Back to the rescue.
Is that better? I know that we all just got back from a long Thanksgiving break. I hope everyone had time with family and friends. So I do appreciate you all coming the Monday back, and everyone's here on a Monday night to talk with the superintendent. So I hope that tonight is very informative to you all. This is pretty much an open floor, so we're going to ask any questions that you want. I know you're going to talk through kind of what the process is going to be this evening. But I just hope that you all are just willing to chat and ask those tough questions, and I'm able to respond and answer them. And I would like to thank, I know you acknowledged our principals, but I would like to thank our principals for coming out this evening as well, because I know you all just got back into the swing of things this week. So thank you for being here tonight. And I may have to call you to help me out with some possible responses this evening. Possible. You all have advised me enough, but we'll see. This is my test.
So one of the reasons why we asked that the unit principals be available is that some of the questions at the last meeting, the last chat, were things that when Dr. Hutchings was answering, some of them were things that unit principals might be able to add to. So we asked that maybe they could come and the questions would be more fully answered tonight. So we are glad that they were able to come and share with you as well. We're going to get started with a few questions that were submitted online. And our first question was from Sharon Lowenkamp.
Hi.
Want to come up to the mic, Sharon?
Sure, I sure will.
Thank you.
Good evening. I was wondering with the new pre-K program that you're instituting for next year, I saw that in the literature it's a joint partnership with Shaker, I believe Family Connections, and I don't remember the other.
Invest in children.
Right. And it said that it was a scholarship-based program, but it also indicated that students on a needs base could get scholarships. So I'm wondering what the funding for those scholarships are, and is there going to be a limit on the number per year of scholarships available?
That's a good question. And nice to meet you, Ms. Lowenkamp. We've corresponded.
Oh, yes, we have.
So I can put a face to the name now. So first, let me just say that the state does not support early childhood education. So their early childhood education funding has to come from either private donors or a school district has to come up with the funds to pay for any type of early childhood learning. Our goal is to have the 2 classrooms, so 2 classes of 16. The goal is to have about a third of the students receive some form of scholarship to be a part of the program. And it is a tuition-based program, so the tuition is $7,000 a year, which for anybody who has a preschool, it's really not a lot. If you had a preschool many years ago, it sounds like a whole lot. But let me tell you, you're paying more than college now to go to preschool. My child just started kindergarten this year, so $7,000, everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's so inexpensive. But everyone can't afford $7,000. So in order for us to make sure we have a diverse population of students who are able to benefit from this structure, we are working to get private donors to pay the tuition of about 10 students. That's a third of the 32. So it's going to be about 10 students who will receive full scholarship tuition. These students will be eligible for free or reduced lunch, and that is the basis for the need that they would have to be eligible for free and reduced lunch if they were in Shaker schools. So we're not planning to use district funds to pay the tuition of these individuals. We are meeting with tons of people which there are a lot of people out there, believe it or not, who really would like to support and pay for some of these young people.
All right, the next question we have is from Julie Hannenberg.
Hello.
I have a question about the changes to the ERP program at the elementary level seem to indicate that the district is moving away from gifted education. How is the district specifically meeting the needs of the highest achieving students at the elementary level? And please explain the district plan regarding enrichment.
That's a good question, a really good question, because right now we really do not have a district plan as to what we're going to do in regards to gifted education. And I think it is something that many of our schools and our principals, at any time if you want to chime in, you can, but I think that right now at our elementary schools, there are a lot of different things happening at each building. And that is something that we really do need to work on, and we need to have a district stance on what we believe in regards to gifted education. I know we call gifted education Shaker, ERP, Enrichment Resource Program, or ERP here in the district. So what we're doing from the district's perspective is we're going to be defining what gifted education means for Shaker, and that's going to be a long process for us that we haven't even started yet. So I don't have a plan right now about what we plan to do as a district. But this is an area that we do want to work on because we have a lot of autonomy happening at all of our elementary schools in regards to gifted services. And right now it's a little choppy. Everybody's doing something different, which as you just mentioned, is not the best way to do business. But we don't have a stance right now to say whether we're going to do pull out or push in. That's not a discussion district-wide that we've had, but we will be having really soon. And I wish I had more information to tell you right now, but we're really in the beginning stages of talking about how we're going to bring together a committee, how we're going to do an analysis of, research out there in regards to the best way to serve students who have maybe gifted or have gifted needs within our district. So we don't have a clear response for you on that. But right now, gifted is going to remain the way it has been at all of our elementary schools. And I know Fernway is different from Onaway, just like Onaway is different from Lowmont in some ways. But I see Amy raising her hand.
I think one of the things that we need to clarify as a district when we talk about gifted education is, number one, how we identify our gifted students. And we also need to explain that there's a difference between ERP, which is an enrichment program. It's not an acceleration program. And we have always worked to enrich our students, and the coordinators, whether they've pulled the children out or gone into the classroom, have addressed the needs of the students who are high achievers to enrich them. But we really want every child to be enriched. Now, if there's an acceleration need, we have classroom teachers who have, 5 or 6 different reading groups, spelling lists, math groups, that sort of thing. So I think one of the things we're trying to have conversations about is there's a definite difference between the differentiation the classroom teachers do to address those high achieving students and help the students in the middle and shore up the students with special needs and that sort of thing. But enrichment is something we would want for every child.
Can I ask another question based on that? Sure. Yeah, that's okay. You want to come up?
Well, my question is very simple.
Oh,
But I guess I have a question about what was just said. I wonder why we would be making changes to the enrichment programs at the elementary school, in Woodbury, and the middle school, without a plan. I don't understand why all these changes. I just noticed a slew of changes this year. And I'm thinking, well, they must be changing strategy.
What were some of the changes that you're referring to?
Well,
Because they're not district-wide changes, so I want to know specifically
Well,
what
at
you're talking about.
Fernway, we had a very sort of established gifted program in many different areas, and it's been done for years, and then it's just completely eliminated. Now it's just the enrichment teacher goes into the classroom, which is great, I think that's great. But the program as we know it is completely different. I mean, there's no pulling out of any child or anything that is considered gifted. We're trying to differentiate. And then at Woodbury, we went from 3 levels of math to 2 levels of math. At the middle school, we went from 3 levels of math to 2 levels of math. Like, I And I'm
Yes.
thinking, why were all these changes made if there is no strategy?
Yeah, so let me answer your question. For one, when I was referring to the gifted piece, I'm talking about K-4 buildings. At Woodbury in the middle school, I'm not really sure, maybe we need to do a better job of educating our community on the purpose in us having, and it's, I know you say we went from 3 levels to 2 levels, but we still offer students to actually skip a grade that we didn't offer before. So we really haven't gone from 3 to 2. We still have 3 levels of math at Woodbury, as well as at the middle school. One thing that we're focusing on is trying to make sure that if we're going to have an acceleration option, that option is really acceleration, where a student is going to the next grade. If you're in 6th grade, you're doing 7th grade work. Then when you get to 7th grade, you're doing 8th grade. And then when you get to 8th grade, you're doing 9th grade and receiving high school credit. And that is an option that we only have for a very small number of students prior to this year. And that was why we made that specific change at the Woodbury as well as at the middle school.
And my children were impacted by that, and this is my concern. It benefited my 7th grader, which I can see the benefits of it. But because you don't have a strategy and you kind of change things every year, you're like, well, let's try this year, let's try this next year.
So
My
tell me,
eighth
where did we
grader-
start,
with my eighth
where did we
grader was
start the
left
previous year?
behind.
Because I want to be clear on, and I'm trying to get an understanding. When you're saying changing every year, help me understand, what are these
Well, now
changes
the
that are
8th
happening every
graders
year?
didn't have that option, right? So now they're in a class that they didn't have the option to skip. So they're in a class that used to give them 3 levels of math. Now they're in a 2-level math, when there's probably 20 of them that should have skipped, but because you changed the way you did it again, they got stuck. My point is, I'd like to see an overall strategy before we start making changes.
Okay. Well, let me just say that at Woodbury in the middle school, there was a strategy. When I was just referring to was K-4 ERP. We do not have a plan, we do not have a strategy for our K-4 buildings. We did have a strategy and we did have a plan for Woodbury in the middle school. And that was to make sure that we, one, provided acceleration for students and we made sure those courses were actually an accelerated course. We were telling parents that they were going to be, their child was going to be in this upper level math class, but that math class, the highest level was the same as the middle level. That's really no different. They were covering the same material, they were covering the same objectives. The course was identical. What we wanted to do is make sure we were being true to our word and to what we were telling our parents. So we made that 3rd level, or that highest level of math, different from the middle level and as well as from the general level. And that's the change that we made, which was to benefit all of our students and to do what we planned to do initially, and that was to provide that acceleration option. K-4 buildings, we do not have a strategy and we do not have a plan from the district's perspective. And I think that when we're talking about our K-4 buildings, I'm going to refer to our principals, because principals right now have the autonomy at the elementary schools to do what they think is best for their learning environment. We don't currently have a district-wide stance or agenda or plan on how we're going to address ERP in our K-4 buildings. And that's why there's so many different things that are happening, whether you're at Fernway or Honoway or Lowmont or Mercer or Boulevard. You're seeing different things happening in regards to addressing the needs of students who are classified as gifted.
Well, I can speak to that for a second, if it's okay. I've sort of felt the confusion this year at Woodbury. I have a 5th and a 6th grader, and so I had a 5th grader last year, and it was very different. And so
It's different every year.
It's different every year.
Every year
It
you
feels
walk
like,
in and you say, what are we doing now?
yeah, and so, but like, my son got pulled out for a subject last year, but this year it's incorporated in the classroom. And so I think there's just some miscommunication. I don't know if Mr. Robinson can, if he has anything to add to clarify some of the
Woodbury would be-
confusion from Woodbury.
For Woodbury, that wouldn't be Mr. Robinson, it would be Mr. Young.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, Mr. Robinson's Boulevard.
I'm gonna
That's why he's like,
his son's in my son's class,
That's
so it's
why.
on my mind. But, it's, any clarification, maybe, just how things ended up the way that they ended up at Woodbury this year? And
Sure.
if for next year,
Yeah. Well, sure.
maybe there could be
It-
clarification before the, assignments go out.
Oh, we had a whole lot of communication, and I'm pretty surprised to kind of to hear this feedback, but I welcome feedback. But my first year coming from the middle school, when I walked in at Woodbury, it was kind of stressful for me as a principal and my team, because we only had one data point to allow kids to kind of accelerate. And for us as a administrative team, we didn't know who to say yes to and who to say no to, because we had no set criteria. So I went to the board, Dr. Hutchings and Marlon Robinson and the leadership team, and said, can I put together a committee to kind of talk about how can we do better year 2 for us as a leadership team. So we had K-4 teachers, we had middle school guidance counselors, we had middle school teachers, we had all my leaders at Woodbury, the Brenzes of the world, the Jarvis, the Sean Harnish, I mean, all the mathematical minds. You had Val Littman. We had a committee of about 15 people, and we sat around for about 6-7 meetings, and we talked about what should be the criteria for placing our kids here at Woodbury. So we came up with a huge proposal as far as the 5 different data points. That was shared a lot with staff members and community members, and it was emailed out in advance, well in advance. I know it was kind of new because it was new, but we tried our very best to communicate very thoroughly with our parents. We also had PTO meetings where I came and talked with anyone that wanted to come out. It was about 40 parents that showed up that one evening prior to kind of going full-blown, the changes as far as the mathematics. And it was well attended. I thought a lot of parents got to, ask their questions as far as the why, the how, why is this better, and we try to be very transparent in our description of why we went to this level. Like Dr. Hutchings said, we do have 3 levels of math. We have the pre-algebra, where it's really, truly the exact same middle school course. The teacher that teaches that course, she works very closely with the math department chair at the middle school to make sure it looks the same, sounds the same, terminology is the same, the way the class is taught is the same. And then we have enriched mathematics, and we have our core mathematics. And what we worked very hard on this summer, I met with Jen Weisbarth, our math coach. I brought in a team of the teachers who taught that enriched math, and we talked about what will be the curriculum that should be taught in that EM class, making sure that kids are being met where they need to be met and not have a watered-down curriculum, because I was hearing a lot as a principal, my kid is bored, they're not being challenged, because you have all different levels of kids in these enriched classes. So we tried our very, very best to meet the kids where they are. We placed them properly. And then we had a waiver system too. So if we sat down and conversed and shared as far as the data and what the data showed, and say you might disagree with our team and you feel your kid could handle it, we waived in a lot of kids. We did. We waived in pretty much any kid that felt the need to be in that level. And what I'm proud to say, we have data chats. Myself, Doug Miles, Pat Rashid, my instructional coach, Jen Weisbarth, we've had 2 data chats where we make all the EM teachers who teach the enriched courses to come down in Jen Weisbarth's office, and we talk about kids that might be of concern. And I'm proud to say, of all the waived-in kids, very, very few of the kids have been moved. It all stems around effort. I hear a lot from the teachers. They're doing well with the material. I wish they would work a little harder, come inside for recess, come maybe in the morning, stay after school. I think we can do some things within the classroom to help them be more successful. But it has not been a mass exodus, which I thought it would be with those waived-in kids. I was very worried about the waiver, and so was my staff. But I can honestly tell you, Jim Weisbarth and our team of math teachers did a very good job making sure whatever the course title is, that's how we're teaching it, and we're not going to slow the train up. We're going to teach it to that high level expectation. If your kid needs more acceleration, then we have the pre-algebra. If your kid needs the enrich, we have that. If core is better, that's where we are, and we make sure we had a clear matrix as far as what concepts are covered. It was a lot of meetings, and we communicated this. It was a massive packet, a letter from me, overview of the why and what's going to be taught. You had your course selections, you had, the criteria that was mailed to every family. When I was a principal my first year, that was not the case. Some parents knew the rules, how to get in, some did not. Some knew how to push the right buttons for the principal to get in, some did not. And I felt very, very uncomfortable as a principal with that. So that's why we pulled together this team. It was not a Danny Young thing. It was K through 8 getting together after school for 2 hours to talk about what's best for our kids at Woodbury. What's going to be different for this year? We're going to communicate more effectively, trying to find a different way to make sure everybody gets the same information, but we did a mass mailing. Everyone got the same packet. Every single family got the same packet. I was available for, conferencing and, at PTO, and it told you who to call if you had questions. Doug Miles, 5th grade, Pat Rashid for 6th grade, and of course, you can always call Danny Young, the principal. I think parents know that. So I think what's going to be different is we're going to try to find other ways to communicate so we don't hear, communication concerns.
And I think that's something that, the point that I get from this is that we just need to do a better job of
Well, I don't
communicating.
have a child at Woodbury,
with-
so
Yeah, so we just need to do a better job of communicating the piece, because you were speaking on Woodbury, so that's why we were responding. to
well, I
that.
was just
so-
saying the things that I know.
So I think that we just need to do a better job of explaining what the options are so that people don't fill in the blanks. And then we have the wrong information out there, such as, like you just said, that no one was contacted. We want to make sure we're telling the story and also providing the appropriate information so parents can know why changes are made and how it benefits their child. So that is a point taken.
Yeah, it just, I don't know, from a parent perspective, it seems like every year you're like, okay, so what are they gonna do this year? What are they decided to do with the ERP this year? Because it changes.
Well, I will tell you, we had some very, very tough conversations at Onaway about our enrichment program. Poor Dr. Hutchings, I think it was not his wife's turn to come to the PTO meeting. He had to be there for the most difficult one. And I think, Missy, you might have been there as well. It was very, very difficult. But what we talked about was when you're pulling kids out, what happens to the ones who are left? And how do they identify themselves? If we are pulling out children based on one test score, they've performed well on one day, and we're pulling them out for 2 years of their lives and calling them gifted, and then what about these other children who didn't happen to perform well? And that and a number of other reasons, as a staff, we decided, because it's enrichment, it's not the pipeline to enrich anything at Woodbury or the middle school, at the high school. It's an enrichment program to provide a valuable experience. The gifted programming is a whole nother question that we need to talk about, because certainly some of our gifted students have as many special needs as our special needs students, because sometimes that comes along with being highly gifted. So that is something
And
we
that
do
is a
want to talk
new
about.
conversation for us because, and this is why I think we need to make sure we're talking about the same things. What I'm saying is that let's talk about gifted education in Shaker Heights. We haven't done that. When I arrived at Shaker, I was told not to use the word gifted, that we use ERP.
Well, that's why I have.
So and my background is gifted education prior to coming to Shaker Heights. So I was questioning that because there are some students who have needs that cannot be met with push enrichment services. And we need to find a way to make sure their needs are still being met, whether they are high, very, very high level or borderline high level. If we can't serve them in a classroom, we have to find a way, or at least have a plan on how we're going to be able to serve them. And that's something that we have not done in this district, and we need to do it. And it's going to be a very tough conversation, just by us having small people, a small group this evening in this conversation that we're having right now. I know that when we open that can of worms, those can of worms, cans of worms, we're going to see, not just one, cans, we're going to see, our community really have a deep discussion, and it's going to be a tough conversation. It's not going to we're not going to be able to solve the problem overnight. It's going to be a very long process that we are going to have to make that a reality for us.
Dr. Hutchins, I would say that I would not say that we haven't served those students, but we haven't served them to the level that we would have liked to. And I think we need to be more consistent and more clearer in how that is done. So,
I agree.
not that
I
it
agree.
hasn't been done.
And my point was not that it hasn't, it's that we haven't had the discussion about how we're going to serve them and what the district's stance is going to be in regards to gifted education. That is something that we haven't discussed to say, as a district, this is what we believe. Mercer believes this, Onaway believes this. We haven't really said, this is our K-4 gifted philosophy.
Right.
We haven't done that.
Right.
Thank you, this has been very helpful, and I've learned a big thing today. I didn't realize the differentiation between K-4 and then 5 through 12. So that's very helpful, and I think that that's a big thing that could be helpful to many parents, because I was getting concerned by what I was seeing at the elementary school level, that my children were going to be impacted later on. So I feel better knowing that the accelerated program is in place, and especially.
And more robust.
Right, but I do agree though, I think at the K through 4 level, I also am learning the difference between accelerated and enrichment, and I completely agree that we should be enriching every student. Completely agree. I believe we should be closing the achievement gap. I think everyone in this room probably agrees with that. I think that there is concern and maybe just misunderstanding about what you're doing for the acceleration. And I know that like at a very minuscule level, dealing with my own one data point, my son's teacher is working on that, and the school is working on that. But it's only because I'm a squeaky wheel, and so my concern is, what about the other people who aren't squeaky wheels?
The good news at Fernway is we have lots of squeaky wheels. So we've been working on these squeaky wheels for quite a while now. The one thing I want to say is that Dr. Hutchings is right in terms of when he arrived, there was a bunch of different things that were happening. The principals last year worked with a number of different people at the district level to try to create more of a consistent model. Through that discussion, and through our understanding of the changes that were happening at Woodbury, we decided to begin the process of looking at how we could do things differently. And as I've shared with many people at Fernway, Gene Reinhold and the other ERP teachers all came together, and they had a series of meetings, and they talked about what they were doing, what was best meeting individual student needs, the positives and the negatives. One of the things that kind of popped up along the process of us talking about it and the ERP teachers talking about it is that there was a change in staff of the ERP teachers across the district. Not at Fernway, not at Lomond, not at all the schools, but there were some new people being brought on. So if there was ever a year to kind of probably bring us in line and try to make a more consistent model, this would have been a year to kind of begin to make those steps. I'm really happy to hear Dr. Hutchings say and have the ability to kind of look at it, make decisions, try to massage it, make it better for future years. I think at Fernway, one of the biggest changes for us was the elimination of the pull-out model. And like Amy had said, there's an impact on a number of students across the building when that happens. And I agree with Danny, having worked at Woodbury. Looking at a singular data point is something that's a very dangerous thing, because we all know when we've aced a test, and we all know when we've bombed a test. So we want to look at more of a portfolio-based approach as we're making decisions and we're moving forward with this. Jean Reinhold, which is our ERP teacher, she's got strong feelings about things, and I know that she shared that with a number of people at Fernway. But she is saying that the process is going well this year, and she's continuing to kind of tweak it and massage it. And I'm not ruling out that we're not going to have changes in the future. And the fact that we're going to have discussions would indicate to me that there will probably be more changes not only at Fernway but across the district. And so I think we just have to remain open-minded and try to bear with us as we move through some of these changes.
This is a slightly related question, but does the district receive funds for gifted identified students? Doesn't the state of Ohio, you don't receive any funds?
We don't receive any additional funds for gifted like we do for special education.
Okay.
Unless a student has special needs and they have an IEP. But we don't receive, and those are students who are also identified as a student with special needs and also a student who might be gifted. So they're not getting funds for giftedness. So no, we don't receive any state funds.
But you do receive funds for students with IEPs?
Yes, students with special needs, yes.
Okay.
Tricia, do you want to say anything?
Well, I mean, my question's very simple. Basically, with the changes that we've seen along these lines, will there be any changes planned for the high school, the AP and the IB? Or are we revamping those in any way that I
So
need to know about?
no, we haven't had discussions about revamping. We've had discussions about having more AP and IB courses. I know one in particular is AP Computer Science is what the department is looking at right now. And since they were talking about AP Computer Science, IB also offers computer science, and now IB wants to have computer science as well. So we're having discussions right now about adding AP and IB courses. But I still stand behind the fact that AP and IB can live under one roof, and I think that is the uniqueness about Shaker Heights. And I think that as we add AP courses, we're also looking at adding, IB courses as well. So the only change I can see is making more, or having more available courses for students, or more options for students.
Is Gina Hobbs here? No? Okay. Why don't we move on to Katie?
I think my question was mainly what was happening with enrichment programs at Woodbury. And Mr. Young answered those questions. I guess I have one specific one. Could you describe what happens at the 5th grade level for math and advanced language arts, and also at the 6th grade level? Like, what are the different options?
Yes. Like I said, we have 5 data points that we look at before placing kids, and we have a core curriculum that the Common Core kind of meets the kids' needs, and then we have the accelerated, enriched language arts. Those are your 2 options. That's always been the same. That was not changed upon our committee looking at what we do at Woodbury. And then for the mathematics, we have 3, because we used to send the students that need acceleration to the middle school. We had a lot of feedback from parents. Yeah, I kind of want to do that, but I wish my kid could stay here. Socially, I don't know if we're ready for that. So we talked as a committee, and we thought it'd be a good practice to have the kids stay in our home spot, stay at Woodbury. So now they're still accelerated, and like I said before, we make sure that we have a consistent dialogue with the middle school, because like I said, they used to go to the middle school, but now they're staying with us. We have about 28 kids in that class, pre-algebra class. That's a lot of kids.
At the 5th grade level?
6th grade. 5th grade, we have a couple kids that they met the criteria to be in the pre-algebra class, but most of the kids are 6th graders. We have a lot of kids in the enriched math and ELA. We have a lot of kids that chose to take the highest course. And like I said, we have those data chats to make sure we're doing everything we can to ensure their success. We talked with the teachers. Jen Weisbar, she's been phenomenal about giving them strategies and best practices to ensure kids are being met where they need to be met as far as their success. And then, like I said before, as far as the waiver system talked about, we're going to monitor for 9 weeks. And if we see it's not a good fit, it's not appropriate for the kid, we're going to recommend maybe having a conversation with a family to say, you may want to go back to our core curriculum. We have not had a lot of that, and we had a lot of families that chose to waive into the highest level mathematics.
And I think just to add to what you just said, Mr. Young, thank you. But we did provide supports for students who opted in as well. So we wanted to make sure that you just didn't opt in and you were just left there to sink or swim, So we wanted to make sure that the teacher provided additional supports, that we provided students options to go to the tutoring center. That's free for all students in the district. And that we were in contact with parents if we saw any signs of a student not performing, at a consistent level or proficiency level. And I think that also contributed to many of those students being successful, because we were in contact with parents and with the student and providing those additional supports, not just putting it in the course.
Are you evaluating the kids who might have 105% average and might be bored in that class? Are you also looking at that?
Yeah, we are, and that's why we have the acceleration option.
So you would move them into that class halfway?
So teachers, they do, all of our teachers are always looking at our students, whether they are functioning, at a proficiency level, or they're functioning at a really accelerated level in the work. They already know the concepts and they're way above. And those are options that teachers, as well as parents, those are discussions that I'm hoping parents will have with their child's teacher as well. If the child is coming home and saying, every day that the work is too easy, I already know how to do this. And we take it from there. So we look at a number of factors.
I was going to just add, Dr. Hutchings, from the data chats, we had a couple teachers that came to us with kids in core curriculum, and this is the start of the new trimester. I think report cards are copied Friday and mailed shortly thereafter. We moved several kids from the core curriculum to the enriched mathematics based upon the core teacher's recommendations. So we are still moving kids that have met that expectation. So,
Which is important.
Which is important.
Because we can't base it off of even the 5 data points that we're looking at. The new year starts, kids might have done enrichment over the summer. They might have had a bad year last year. So there's a number of factors. So okay, we're going to move on. Right?
submitted, but the person wasn't available to come this evening. What are the superintendent's reflections on the park data? What are he and the principal prioritizing for spring 2016 with slows, air, and other testing strains? If we truly feel like these assessments are done to us, aren't helping inform instruction, what assessments do we value most?
Okay. First, let me just say that I think that the assessments we value most are assessments that allow teachers to make informed decisions in their classrooms. I mean, those are the assessments we value most. And those are things like our MAP tests that we administer to students, Ames Web, CAP. These are some things that you probably have heard about. Waterford is another software system that we use. So those are assessments that teachers are they're actually able to make informed decisions about how to teach their child tomorrow. It's not something we're waiting around for months and months and trying to analyze. So those are the things that we value most. In regards to PARC, last year I stated that, I wasn't a complete supporter of PARC. I do stand behind following state policy and state law because we receive state funds. So we had to administer the PARC assessment because it is our state assessment. However, it wasn't the best assessment. And I think that the work last year that we did from Testmania to the advocacy from our Board of Education, from the administration, from our principals and teachers, as well as students who wrote letters to many of our state senators, that people did hear us because PARC is no longer here. So that is a small celebration because we now have AIR, but it's a move in the right direction. And I think that AIR or AIR, is an assessment that we used last year as well. We just used it for social studies and science. Now we're using it for English language arts and mathematics this upcoming year. And I really don't know how it's going to pan out. What I do know is that this year, since we had the practice last year with PARC, we are being a lot more proactive in regards to our testing schedules and how to, set up our testing schedules so that they are less impactful to the school day and to our students in the school buildings. And we're making sure that we're not putting too much of an emphasis, not to say we don't care about ARR, because we do, but we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket in regards to the ARR tests that will occur this spring. But I do think that we're better prepared. I know that because we've now transitioned into AIR, 40% less time will be spent this year on administration of testing because it's less testing than it was with PARC. So that's a celebration. I think that if I had my way, I think the main thing for me would be to have differentiation in regards to how we assess our young people. We always talk about differentiation in our classes and making sure that we meet the needs of all of our students regardless of what level they're at. I think we need to do the same thing with assessments. So students should be able to show mastery, whether it's through a project, whether it's through an online assessment or paper pencil assessment or applying a particular skill to an actual workforce skill. I think those would be options that would be more beneficial for our young people. And we're not ready for that yet, but I'm hoping that at some point in the future, the state of Ohio will realize that we have to have alternative options to determine whether students have mastered material or not.
Can I follow up on that?
Sure.
The Department of Education has released the PARC results from last year. But is it up to the district to release it to the parents and the students?
The PARC results that we have are preliminary, so we still have to go through, the same time you all got the data, the same time we got the data, we still have to go to make sure the right students are in the right grades and that they're actually Shaker Heights students. So we're still going through, principals are still going through the data to make sure that we have the appropriate students listed. So they're not the official scores yet, they're still preliminary, and that's why they haven't really been released to our parents. Another thing is that I think that if we put a huge emphasis on things like the PARC assessments, then we would really be contradicting what we said last year, that it wasn't that important for us. and now we're putting all of this emphasis on it. So yes, it's something that we want, once we get the official data, we want to present to our community, to our parents, but we don't want to put too much of an emphasis on something that we have 8 months later, and that really is not going to help us do anything for your child today.
Well, they need to pass certain of them for, instead of the OGT.
Well, that's end of course, so that's separate from Park.
Okay, well,
So
okay,
the
that's
end of
what
course
end of
test,
course.
then yes, so that's different. So with our end of course tests, those are assessments that I know, I'm not sure what the schedule is at the high school, but our department chairs and our school counselors, they look at the end of course to determine what support students are going to need to actually, graduate on time or to get the remediation that they need to pass that particular end of course. One thing that we've done differently this year with our end of course results is that we're making sure that we put together a support plan for students the moment we know they have not passed the end of course assessment, so that we're not waiting, until the last minute, sometimes their senior year, to still take a 10th grade end of course. We're trying to get those supports earlier so they can get that out of their way and move forward with their academic courses.
I'm sorry, just jumping in on that question. First, I'm one of those parents who opted into one of those upper level classes. And it took a little vigilance for the support network. When we seen that we were having a little struggle in keeping up. And but with some vigilance, we were able to get the support network and back on path. But my question is for those core students who I've been in contact with and have been speaking with throughout the middle school and high school. Are there support networks for them whose parents aren't here? These are the squeaky wheel parents. So what about the parents who are silent and their children are coming to school and they're seniors in high school and haven't taken the ACT test, haven't applied for college as of yet? And those type of things that the squeaky wheel parents will make sure that their students does. Is there is Shaker looking out for those students?
Yes, and I think that raises a great question, and that is definitely something in regards to our core classes that we want to make sure that we have that same amount of rigor in those core classes, and that there's still college preparatory courses for students so that they can be successful. Another piece in regards to ACT, this year we are going to have all of our 10th graders taking the ACT within the district. PSAT, I'm sorry, not ACT, ACT. The PA, thank you. I saw Dale's eyes like, what? No, we're not. But all of our 10th graders this year will take the PSAT, and it's for the very reason that you just mentioned. Some of our families are already taking, have their kids signed up for, PSAT prep courses to prepare for the PSAT their junior year when they're eligible for a National Seminar Finalist criteria or category. So what we're doing is we want our kids to be exposed to that in 10th grade to get that practice, and for all of our 10th graders, so that when they take the PSAT in 11th grade, when they actually can be eligible for the National Semifinalists, that they're better prepared to do that. And that is something that the district is paying for. We are replacing, what did we use before ACT? Was it Plan?
Plan.
Well, we had planned and we tried Aspire, and that was not a success. And so now we're using PSAT. Plan has disappeared. It doesn't exist anymore.
And that was that through the College Board plan?
That was ACT.
Okay. So yeah, so there are some measures that we have put in place recently to address students who are in the middle.
Is Karen Yusko here?
Hi. So my question is kind of two parts, so I'll ask the first part and then we'll follow up. Mine is about the high school principal search. I was just curious what Mr. Reed's what his status is for next year. And if Mr. Reed wants to extend his time as interim principal, will he be hired for another year?
So, in regards to the principal search, last spring, when we started the principal search, one thing that we mentioned was it was, a little far-fetched to try to find a principal in May, but we were going to at least try. And we started out saying that openly, and that if we couldn't find the right person, we would have an interim during that transition of time. Since we found Mr. Reed, and he has accepted, the job as the interim principal. And from the moment he was hired, we did mention, if it's something that you want to consider, you just need to let us know. We still have a contract with Hazard Young and Atia. So our principal search is still active. We are still receiving applications for the principal search. As stated back in the spring, and I'm still stating this now, we said that we were going to begin to review applications in January to determine our interview process or the time frame for our interview, because the goal was to try to have someone at least extended an offer by March. So we're getting well ahead of the game. If Mr. Reed chooses to say, hey, I want to put my name in the hat and I want to run, or I would like to interview to become the principal, then we are going to strongly encourage him to do that. Now, he's had 6 months on the job, so he'll have, the upper hand of anyone else who's applying for the job. But we still want to stay true to the process and make sure that we are following the agreement that we set back in the spring. Because we spent time working with parents, with students, with our faculty members to establish the profile, the leadership profile for the next principal. I think that Mr. Reed has done a great job thus far, and he meets a lot of those expectations that we had in the actual leadership profile, and that's why we hired him in the interim position. But we still want to make sure that we stay true to the process and that we are being fair and equitable in regards to opening that opportunity up. And may the best man or woman win.
So do you have, so that being said, and right, this is no commentary on Mr. Reed or anything, but then I'm just curious, so that's, when you say we're kind of have this ongoing, we're receiving applications, is that January we say?
So yes, and maybe we'll reprint some information that we printed back in August. So January is when we said we were going to start looking at applications. The goal was to start interviews in about February for a July 1st appointment. So we'll start circulating that timeline again to everybody. We were really trying to get school started and trying to get Mr. Reed acclimated into Shaker. That really wasn't something we were focusing on at the beginning of the school. We were trying to make sure kids had schedules, teachers, and but it's always been our plan to reopen that in January. So we haven't forgotten that.
Is Walter Saylor here? No? Okay, he submitted a question. What about Heather Chapman? All right, well, what we could do, since the people who submitted questions aren't here, we can certainly open up the microphone to anybody who has a question, or we could read the questions that were submitted that the people weren't here to ask.
I have just another question. I'll ask.
Yeah, part two. I was like, where's your part two?
No, you kind of answered, I kind of asked for it too, so I'm okay. I'm just curious, because I'm one of those parents, I'm curious, I understand too, I have a 10th grader who was in 9th grade last year, and he did take the part. And so I agree with you, and I'm not concerned, but now I'm curious, he spent a lot of time having to take the part. That was a lot of class, he missed, they all did, they missed a lot of classroom, and that, I get that that's not the district's problem, you have to do what the state says. But I am curious, how did he do? So, will we get that information? Because I'm just, out of sheer curiosity, I would like to know how he performed. So I understand that, you have to go through and do all you do, but at some point, will we get that information?
So Dale and Dr. Brady.
Dale.
Dr. Whittington and Dr.
You're a high school parent? Okay. First of all, even though we've been getting computer files, we still don't have score reports for everything. So what we have to do is wait until we get all the score reports and then assemble a mailing that will go out to all parents. That will probably be in January.
And I know we have the letter ready. We voted back in September. We just don't have it. So I think, I think you bring up we're just as, anxious, I guess, as our parents are. The unfortunate thing is that we are waiting just like parents are waiting. So you all are waiting to get your children to school, we're waiting to get all of our right scores too. So, it's not like we have all this information and we're just hoping.
No, I understand that.
And which is different than it has been. Before, we would get the data and then we're responsible for, sharing it with our community. We don't have all the data that we need to feel comfortable sharing it with you. And then sending you another letter saying, oh, no, now we have new information and your child didn't get this score. So we want to make sure that when we send it out that it's accurate. But like I said, the letter was written in September. Saved on my computer. Well, I made some revisions to when Dale wrote it. Dale wrote the letter. We wrote the letter.
It was a group.
It was a group effort. You want to ask some of those questions?
Yes,
No,
yeah. There was a question on study circles. So it was asking, why are study circles only for advanced students? I don't understand why they're not offered to kids in the middle. When is this going to change? Parents have been asking for this for years, or is there something in place that I am not aware of, other than the traditional tutoring and after-school conferences? As a parent who has had children who are advanced and in the middle, it does not make sense to me that study circles, which are extremely beneficial, are not made available to those kids.
So study circles are, these are peer tutoring opportunities for students at the high school. And typically, right now, students who are in AP and honors take advantage of the study circles. Just to give you a little bit of history about how study circles started, it was started specifically for African American students who were enrolled in AP and honors courses at the high school. And that many of those students, this was their first time taking a course at that level of rigor, and they needed additional supports. And they wanted to have supports by other students to keep them encouraged and for them to stay into the program. Now that evolved. That's what the initial reasoning behind study. I found all this out from our high school counselors. So that's how it started. It evolved over time, and it became something for all students who were taking AP and upper level courses, because the school wanted to find another option so that AP and honor students weren't taking all the time in the tutoring center and taking that time away from kids who might be in, at that time they were CP courses or our team courses. So that's when they began to push for honors and AP kids to do the study circle versus tutoring. We still have tutoring options open for all students. So whether you're core, we no longer say CP. Whether you're core for general education, whether you are on a team, these are typically students who may have special needs in some cases, or some challenges. Whether you're in honors or advanced, tutoring is available free of charge Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday here at the high school for all students. And we hope that students will take advantage of that. And we still have that option for kids to get the tutoring. The person's not here, so you have to follow up. I don't think.
No. This question was submitted by a man who wants to know what personal contacts, pardon me? What personal contacts do you have and your school leaders have with the Ivy League schools to assist deserving students to enter an Ivy League school? And when will there be proper coordination of homework assignments so my kid isn't up till midnight doing busy work?
Well, I think Shaker, let me just say, every Ivy League knows Shaker schools. I can promise you that. So there's not a contact that I need to have. I'm known now because I'm here in Shaker. So I think that we have contacts with our Ivy Leagues. Our counselors, and they really do a great job here at the high school in regards to making sure that students are aware of what the requirements and the expectations are to get into an Ivy League school. And they're in communication, consistently in communication with our Ivy Leagues. And they also help counsel students to make sure that they're signing up for the right courses and that they're submitting the appropriate information to get in. It doesn't guarantee that because we're Shaker that you're going to get into the Ivy League, because everybody across the country, really all over the world, are trying to get into our Ivy League schools. But we have a very good relationship with Ivy Leagues. In regards to the homework, you know, I mean, I say the same thing. My daughter, she's up until 7 o'clock, and she's in 5th grade doing her homework. So, you know, I think that's something that there are pros and cons to it, you know. I think that many of, when I talk to our alumni who come back, they say, our high school experience, it prepared me for college. Actually, college is easy compared to what I had to do in high school. And I think a part of that is because of the demands we do ask of our young people, right, wrong, or indifferent. It does benefit some of our young people when they leave us. We do need to have some conversations in regards to just balance. And that is one of the things that's in our 5-year strategic plan. Do I have an answer for today? No, I don't. But it is something that is a topic of discussion for us. This year, we're focusing on the elementary school to talk about homework and our upper elementary school. And then next year, we're going to be talking at middle school, and then the following year, we're going to be talking with the high school. So we're trying to work our way up to the high school. So in about 3 years, I should be able to have a better response on the homework policy and the demands that we're asking of our young people.
I'm looking at my senior in the back who's saying too late for me.
Too late. You're going to be graduating. You're going to be almost out of college. But I think it is a topic that many of our families have. And I say that, so I'm not complaining, Mr. Young, about Micah's homework, because I think it is making her a very strong young lady. But I do think it's definitely a topic for discussion that we need to really determine what is our philosophy of homework, and does working until midnight have an impact on your future, and does it get you into the school of your choice versus someone who might have to just do homework until 8 o'clock at night. But I think that's a really deep discussion, similar to that gifted education. Those cans of worms, that's another one that we are going to have to open really soon. That was it?
That's it.
I have a question, as an occasionally squeaky wheel parent of 3 semi-communicative boys. I found it super helpful. My middle and youngest have benefited from the Remind app.
Oh, yes.
Fernway's using it, and then I have a student in 6th grade at Woodbury. And I'm thinking, and hearing some of the concerns that have been voiced tonight and communication overall, does the district have a plan to kind of across the board utilize specific tools to push information out to parents, particularly something like that Remind, which is just so helpful, like, oh, that's right, book fair is tomorrow, and I should send that money in with my kid, because if they haven't communicated that with you, or I've had occasion where, particularly my 6th grader, both last year and this year, was in a classroom with either a teacher or an aide, I guess, in addition to the classroom teachers, who kind of sent out a summary every week to parents. I mean, it's just so helpful. So I'm wondering if the district has any plans to kind of across the board say, we'll be doing this.
Well, I think that's one of the topics for a discussion with our communications strategy. We're going to be doing a work session to the board, I believe it's in March, regarding communications. And that's one of the areas that we are going to discuss, and how we communicate with our families district-wide, and what the expectation is district-wide. So I can't say that today everybody's going to do Remind, but I can say, because I have a child at Fernway and also Woodbury, it's been very helpful for us too. So I know tonight, my daughter has an online homework assignment, and I asked her when she got home, did you do your homework? And she didn't. So yeah, she didn't. She's probably working on it now. So I think that it is helpful as a parent to just have that reminder, because we have busy lives too. All of us, people who are working, even if you're not working at an office, you're still working at home because you have children. So I think that it is important for us to have those constant reminders. But it's a part of our communication strategy. Can't tell you what it's going to look like district-wide right now, but we will have a response to that in March at the work session. I hope you all come out to our work sessions, our Board of Education work sessions. They're very informative, and the schedule is on the district website. And it gives you an opportunity, one, to see how talented our board members are, because they actually get to dialogue about educational issues. And they ask us some really, probing questions about the work that we're doing. And I think it will give a lot of our constituents a better understanding to the decisions that we're making and why within our district. So I really encourage you all to come out to just, it's once a month. We don't have one this month, but the next one in January.
Hi. In August, the CDC identified school start times as a public health issue, and they recommend that middle schools and high schools start after 8:30. You see benefits even after 9, after 9:30. Kids do even better. So I was wondering what the process would be to get ready for such a change. I know that the teachers have in their contract the school start times for next year, but that's the sort of thing that can be renegotiated, which is important.
And I agree. And I wish it was so easy to just say, oh, just renegotiate it. It's not that easy, but it is something that is definitely on our watch. We are forming our calendar committee in the spring, I think in the next couple of months, to begin to have discussions around our calendar for the 2018-2020 school years. That is going to be one of the items that we are going to discuss. If the start times of our schools are, appropriate, are they most effective for our students? Is it a major issue for us? We did read that article, and I got a lot of emails when the article came out about the start times. And one thing that we did do immediately when that report came out is we looked at other school districts to see what their start times were for high school and also for middle school. And we saw that we were not like at the bottom. We didn't start first, but we didn't start last. We were kind of in the middle in regards to our start time. We're closer to 8:30 than most school districts. But that doesn't mean that it's still not a topic for us to have discussions around. So that will be something we will talk about with our calendar committee. And then we'll bring it up with the SHTA.
Not for about 3 years.
Say that again?
Not for about 3 years.
Well, our calendar has already been approved until 2017.
Okay.
So it's been, actually until 2000, is it 2017 or 2018? 2017, yeah. So until 2017. So it's already set for now. We're going to be discussing what it's going to look like after that. All right, 2017? I think it was 2015, 2017.
We spoke a couple weeks ago about the text system getting started, with texting parents in emergencies and for snow days, also be emergencies.
Yes.
And I was wondering how far you've gotten, if it's coming.
I'll let Mr. Stevens answer that one.
Yeah, we actually have come a long way on that. We're at a point where we expect to do some testing text, if you will, as early as next week, and actually get the thing up and running within the next couple of weeks. We hope certainly by winter break to have that up and running. And the idea being that when we get into the heart of the bad weather season, we'll have that as a tool to use, among other tools.
And that communication is going out to our families. We just didn't want to send it out now when everything wasn't completed. We want to give a date as to when to expect it to happen.
And one of the things, if I may, just because I think it is distinctive text, is that according to FCC regulations, people have to opt in to text. You can't just say, all right, I've got your phone number now, we're going to send you text. You have to agree, so we'll have a parent portal kind of system, which we'll be communicating when we get it up and running, where people can, I think, relatively easily opt in.
So you would do it through that, you wouldn't have them, start making changes now to have their emergency contact number be a cell phone number instead of a home phone number?
Well, I think it's always good to have your numbers updated to the best number for you and your family and your student. regardless. I mean, tomorrow, starting
But the
tomorrow
text
morning.
thing will be a different.
It'll be different in the sense, that will feed, that information that you described, your record as a family in terms of what your emergency, will feed this. But to receive the text, you do have to opt in. And then essentially you receive something back then automatically that confirms that, and you say, in so many words, yes, I want, just to confirm that indeed you did ask to opt in.
So parents will have to manually go onto
Right.
the portal online to put in their number that triggers an email to come to your phone. You can also put in your child's phone number as well to trigger for it to come to their phone, because parents, we're not allowed to just send text messages to kids under 18. A parent has to give permission for that child to receive text messages from the schools. So that's the way we're going to be able to do that and still follow the FCC regulations.
We'll be getting plenty more information coming forward on that. It's very specific, step-by-step information when we are comfortable. Then we're ready to give it a green light. Thanks.
I think so.
And then did you have?
Scott answered it.
Okay.
We'll probably have a slightly longer conversation at our January 11th meeting. We have the school safety. The gentleman in charge of school safety will be coming to our PTO council meeting. So if anyone would like to have more information and a little more detail, some of this will probably be worked out by then.
It will be looked at.
So feel free to join us.
Thank you all so much for coming.
Any other questions? Okay. Yes, you have questions?
I was wondering what we're doing as a district to help educate our students to be responsible cyber citizens.
Yes, good question. I think the start is by trying to at least come up with expectations for, cyber etiquette. And that's something that we've been having discussions at the high school about how we come up with, one, the cyber etiquette, and then how we share that information with our young people. I hate to say this, but I think that it does, this is one thing that I think really starts at home too. And our parents have to have conversations about the whole cyber piece. And that's something that, our parents can really help us by talking to their kids about the consequences and the impact that it has the moment you text, tweet, Facebook, Instagram, things, whether it's about you or someone else. And I think that we, as adults, should also try to model that same thing, because we're so quick to send things out as well, and then we find out something else. We find out another answer later, and it's too late. You've already tweeted it out, and it was the wrong thing. So I think that we need to work on that as adults as well. But that is something that we're having conversations about, trying to include in our school handbook or our student handbook, cyber etiquette. So that's something that you're going to see in the future. Right now, it's very general. It's not really as specific as it needs to be. But to not just talk about consequences, but to talk about the appropriate things to do is what we need to really focus on. This is how you text, or these are the types of things that you should text about. Let's text about, having a great day at school, and not about the person who just fell down the steps, things like that. Because those are hurtful things that never go away. And that is a form of cyberbullying, because that child never gets over that moment, because now it's been tweeted and retweeted all over the Twitter account, which is detrimental to that child's future. So, but it should start at home, but we do have to come up with some more cyber etiquette measures. I think that's it. Great, thank you all.